the 20th year anniversary this July of my fellowship in neuroscience for medical doctors who wish to have a laboratory research career, and it is also 10 years since the start of my fellowship in psychiatry in clinical research at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So, to celebrate these occurrences and to highlight a little bit my professional path, how I got to where I am, I wish to make a brief video. Because I was reading recently an interesting book by Chelsea Clinton. It's a whole series, She Persisted. The one that I was reading was about Maria Tauchief. They are for younger girls and younger people, but I think they're interesting for adults too. And there are many about accomplished women. Helen Keller, Virginia Abgar, Ella Fitzgerald, Florence Nightingale, my favorite Oprah Winfrey, and other accomplished women, including Kamala Harris. And I thought that my path in science and in medicine, when I came to the US and even a little bit before that, was She Persisted. And several years ago, a young scientist from Spain contacted me on Facebook, and she wanted to know, she was in Canada, exactly how I arrived in the US, how I found my positions, how I dealt with grants, funding, and to be like a mentor for her. And several Chinese scientists have approached me, so I think this will be useful, sharing a little bit my experience for others who may be just starting their professional path. And I also want to take this opportunity to share where I am and where I would like to go from here. So, I am a scientist and a medical doctor since early on. I started medical school when I was 17 years old, graduated when I was 23, and then I did PhD until I was 26. And so this has always been my path. And although my dream as a girl was first to be a ballerina and a painter, kidney disease and my dad wishing me to follow the family tradition of medicine made me become a medical doctor. As I noted before, my dad said, you can draw in your spare time when you grow up. You can draw atlases. And this is why now I dance so much and I paint, and I want to include art therapy and more specifically dance movement therapy also in my professional activities as a physician. And I tend to understand and start liking things that I start working on. And so I started liking medicine and science a lot, and I became a postdoctoral fellow and obtained my fellowship at Fogarty in the US. And so how fellowship in neuroscience, I started doing primarily basic laboratory research in neuropharmacology at Drexel University for 4 years. I was first a postdoctoral fellow and then research assistant professor, and I really liked the laboratory science, but being a physician, I missed the interaction with the patient. And this is why I decided to pursue my MD certification here in the US and started reading for my USMLE test. I passed my test on the first attempt and I was easily certified. But the path to obtaining residency was more difficult because I needed recent clinical experience in the US. And this is why I went to University of Illinois Chicago, the Department of Psychiatry, because there I could work laboratory research in psychiatry and neuroscience and at the same time be observer in the psychiatric hospital. And so I did this, but I have mentioned before that my boss was quite moody, and he had a different concept of science. And my way of interacting maybe was too self-feminine for him, and so he in a way did not encourage my scientific activities so much. And he even told me that if I don't get into residency, I'm finished. This is what he said. But I knew that I wanted to do neuroscience, and so when he said that, I asked two colleagues for recommendations and became a member of the Society for Neuroscience in 2000. And I was a member of the Society of Neuroscience until 2020, when I decided, because I always paid a membership by myself, that I no longer wish to be a member of the Society for Neuroscience. And so I finished my work at University of Illinois at Chicago and started residency. But my residency at Chicago Medical School was primarily clinical. There was no research, and also I mentioned that I had to drive a lot from North Chicago to South Chicago. And I really wanted to do research. And so I decided to leave the residency and went to University of Michigan. And I think the main reason that I was just for 1 year at University of Michigan is because I did not value myself enough and I did not stand my ground with the research. But anyhow, looking back, maybe this is what was necessary so that I obtained my dream to do both clinical medicine and research. And I was there for 1 year, but the fellowship was not extended, and so I had to look for a job. And I knew that I wanted to study aptoreceptors and synaptic plasticity because maybe they're what will give us a clue to what is happening training in schizophrenia, in depression. And so I started looking for a job by reading what laboratories are doing and emailing or phoning lab PIs, but I always had a negative response. And that was not easy. But my mom said, you will find a job, don't despair. And I had put out my desire to the universe to do science as a physician. And so one day I was reading the announcements in Science magazine, and I saw an announcement for a fellowship at Albert Einstein College of Medicine Department of Neuroscience for physicians who wish to do research. And the premise was to contact the supervisor and to obtain their approval. And so I contacted Dr. Reed Carroll, who was working on AMPA receptors. I have shared this before, so I will not go into detail, but Dr. Carroll agreed, and so I was awarded the fellowship in 2 years trained in synaptic plasticity. And here is my fellowship certificate. For the period of July 1st, 2005 to June 30th, 2006. This fellowship was designed so that I can obtain a faculty position, and I applied. But I think that was the period 2007 when the hiring started to slow down because of the recession, and then there was a hiring freeze from 2008 to 2011, which was detrimental, and I could not find a position as an assistant professor. I wish maybe I had a little more support from my mentor, but maybe he supported me as much as he could. So I came back to Hunter College, and afterwards, as I was working in Hunter College on synaptic plasticity, mental retardation in animal models, I was thinking of ways how I can apply this into the clinic for autism. And I even started writing a paper myself without any prompting from my supervisor, like a review paper summarizing my findings. And how I found out about my second fellowship, it was a little bit after New Year's, 2013, and I was ill at home, and I was wondering, what should I do? Let me read about autism. And I read about Dr. Hollander, who studies autism, and he studies in immunology also with Trichuris suicava, and I have a PhD in immunology, and I thought, this is something interesting. And I looked up Dr. Hollander's website, and there was the option for volunteering. And I thought I will write to him that I want to volunteer. But then I thought, of course he will say no, why write? And so I wrote the email, and then I deleted it. But then something kept urging me to send that email. And the next day I sent it. I waited quite a long time, and then Dr. Hollander said that I can be a volunteer. And I was volunteer in their team, and I even shared with him the paper that I was writing on ionotropic glutamate receptors in neurodevelopmental disorders, and he became co-author with me and Dr. Jason Shepard. And then later on in 2015, the opportunity came for me to be a fellow in psychiatry on Dr. Hollander's team again at Albert Einstein College of Medicine. So that was 3 years. I have my certificate. I didn't take it with me. In looking back, I think that you have to put out a clear request to the universe what you want. I know that I wanted to do science, and at the same time, I'm a physician. And so circumstances were such, not always to my liking. Like I wanted to stay at University of Michigan, but it was for just 1 year. Then, when I was in California, I wanted to be there, but there was no job, and so I had to come back here to New York, where I found my job at Hunter College and then with Dr. Hollander. In California, it would have been a purely research job at the Scripps Research Institute. So sometimes, even if things don't turn exactly as you want them, trust that if you're doing your best, it's for the best, and that the universe is conspiring to bring your desire to fruition. And so, I think you have to do the necessary work, but just trust that things are working out for the best. And I hope this information is useful for others. It hasn't been easy. From here, I want to work in a pharmaceutical company, as I have mentioned before, because my experience is very suitable. But since I have worked a lot in academia, this transition from academia to pharmaceutical environment is a little bit more complicated. But hopefully I will find the right position with faith and doing my best. Thank you, and I wish you success in your professional endeavors.